Ugh, do you remember Henry Cavill's mustache? Yeah? Well, you're gonna get that from beginning, middle, and end of this film. Welcome back to Screen Zen viewers. My name is Jason, and today we're talking about The Flash. The Flash movie is far from perfect, but is it a bad film? I'm going to get into the good, the bad, and my overall ranking of the film. Let's get into some of the good. The story that was told is an offshoot from the Flashpoint comics, where he goes back in time in order to save his mother, but also to save his father, who gets blamed for her death. As part of the storytelling, the emotional tones of the film were very, very strong, especially with his family. As he's talking to his mother and father, you can see why he cares so much about them. Scenes with his family from the beginning, middle, and end were some of the strongest that I've ever seen, and that was definitely a standout to me, and even brought a tear to my eye in some cases. This was an action comedy, and it hits each comedic beat when it's needed. It was not overdone, and a big part of that was Ezra Miller. He was very funny, y'all. I found myself laughing at certain scenes all the way through, and whenever Ezra was on screen being his funny self, I was chuckling and I was laughing. And that brings me to my next standout, the performances. One in particular, Michael Keaton's Batman. He did a great job reprising his role, and he was almost like a mentor to Ezra Miller's Flash, where certain scenes, as they're even talking about time travel, reminded me of Back to the Future. But he brought Michael Keaton, or his version of the Batman, to this film. So he alone was definitely a standout, and it was great to see him back wearing the cowl. We also see Ben Affleck's Batman, who also does a great job in his role. Even though limited, it was still good to kind of see him. They had him in trying to tie the Flash to the other DCEU films. I can't talk about performances without giving a shout out to Sasha Calle, who played Supergirl. She did an amazing job. She came in a little late though, and what we got from her, I absolutely loved. I was even thinking that I wouldn't mind seeing this as a standalone, Supergirl standalone. Because she comes later in the movie, I felt like her arc was a little rushed. I actually couldn't figure out how she knew how to use her powers in the situation she was in, where it did actually take Henry Cavill's Superman a little bit of time to learn his powers, and really his lifetime from being a boy to a man to actually figure it all out. So that was a bit confusing in the situation that she was in this film. And of course, I can't get out of the performances without talking about the man of the hour, Ezra Miller. Now, despite what you think about this man, I was really going into this trying to separate real life from the actual movie. And to my surprise, he did a great job. Ezra Miller plays the Flash and also a younger version of himself as he does go back in time. The difference in the acting was great. You can see the older Ezra kind of mentoring and training the younger one. And in these scenes, I loved it. And seeing the difference from him acting as, a more mature Flash to a younger Flash, the acting was just great. This allowed me to see the Flash's maturity, where in the Justice League and the other DCEU films, he was pretty much just a bumbling idiot who was there for comic relief. Another standout, the cameos toward the end were great. We get to see Christopher Reeve's Superman, as well as Tim Burton's unreleased, never made Superman. It was great to see. And they took a lot from the past and the present in order to make it happen, but it did fail on some levels. As an action movie, the action was great, but it did actually suffer a little bit because of the special effects, and we'll get into that in the cons. Let's get into it. One of the biggest things that I walked away from this movie not liking is how this movie promised to tie itself to the DCEU or even reset it. It actually failed doing this, and it literally had no other ties except seeing a few characters, but it did nothing to move the story or of what they were building in those films forward. Here we are. The final and maybe the most detrimental con about this film, the special effects. Ugh. Do you remember Henry Cavill's mustache? Yeah? Well, you're gonna get that from beginning, middle, and end of this film. All the special effects looked weird and rubbery, like it wasn't complete, almost as if they ran out of time trying to get this done. Annoying. There's even a scene in the very beginning where he's at a hospital having to save some babies. Everything in that scene looked fake. They didn't have to do the babies like that. Like I said, it was great to see all of these cameos, but the thing that held it back was the special effects again. Everyone looked like a putty man or woman. It just wasn't hitting at all the way they wanted it to, or the way I believe it should have. That's literally how the movie started, and I had to just accept this is what we're gonna get for 2 hours. Even the director said that it was done bad on purpose. More lies. Ultimately, viewers, I gave this film a 3 out of 5. A great story. I enjoyed watching it, especially the scenes where he's with his family as a young boy and then coming back to change things and meeting his mother that he lost, and that emotional pull. It was just so satisfying and emotionally strong. The cameos were a pleasant surprise. Michael Keaton was the biggest draw of the whole film, and every time he was on screen, I was excited. His fighting, his banter with the rest of the cast were great, and I enjoyed Michael Keaton actually being a part of this film as Batman. Top. But this movie was held back by its horrible CGI. Everything looked rubbery. This could have been a great movie where it's only a good movie. That's why I gave it this rating. If you want to see more reviews, little known facts, and also trailer reactions, you can hit the playlist and also visit the channel. Hit subscribe if you want to support, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great one, guys.